Okay, so we're just coming up to 3 minutes past 6 here in the south of Portugal. So we should make a start without further ado. Welcome to my first webinar with portugal.com, and it's a pleasure to be invited to host some of the common questions that have been asked around Portugal at the moment, and give everyone a kind of an up to the minute understanding of exactly what's happening with Portugal's Golden Visa, and actually be able to answer the questions that everyone has, hopefully this evening or this morning. And we've got until the hour, but thanks for everyone for joining. My plan today, as I mentioned, is to try to answer as many questions as I can. There's a lot of news around Portugal's Golden Visa at the moment. Some conflicting information, there's a lot of panic, a lot of excitement, and hopefully by the time we finish, you'll have a clear understanding of exactly what the program is, and if it is something to consider, and how long ultimately you have perhaps to consider it as well. But to cover the key topics, itinerary for this evening, first of all, like I said, we'll cover off, I'll introduce kind of who we are and what the program is, and who Holborn Assets is as a company. We'll have a look at the latest news with regard to the withdrawal of the program. We'll have a look at the process involved from start to finish. So what does it take to qualify for the Golden Visa? How long does it take, and what's involved to get there? I'm going to be showing you a way to invest for less than 280,000 and qualify for the visa as well. And yeah, I'll show you some of my personal favorites of different qualifying investments still currently available across Portugal that meet the criteria for the visa at each of the different price points. So yeah, other than that, we're going to have a live Q&A at the end. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see a Q&A section. I'm Mohammed, nice to meet you. So yeah, any questions, please do fire them in as we go. I may be able to answer a lot of the questions as we go through the slides. However, anything that we miss, we'll make sure that I cover at the end. I've also had some questions submitted before the webinar started as well. So yeah, we'll get through the slides in due course, and then we'll get into the questions as soon as we can, and see how we go. But yeah, for those that have not watched any of my webinars before, I've come across Holborn Assets. So my name is Jason Swan. I'm a senior partner at Holborn Assets, who are in fact not a Golden Visa company, to avoid any confusion. We're actually a global wealth management practice. I myself am a qualified and regulated financial planner based here in Portugal. And my main job is to help clients manage and integrate their finances along with moving into Europe. But a big part of the Holborn Assets Group is a service that we designed around about 6 years back called Holborn Passport. And it is a service designed to help our clients achieve residency and citizenship by way of investment. Portugal is just one of many different investment programs that we offer for different citizenship programs worldwide, and at the moment is generally the hot topic. So, being based in Portugal myself, I've been here for 2 years. Previous to Portugal, I was in Spain, in Malaga for 5 years. Fortunately, I'm much better with numbers than I am with languages. I've still not quite picked up even the basics of Portuguese, to be fair, but fortunately in the Algarve it is very much an English-speaking part of Portugal. Portuguese are generally very welcoming to the English, a little bit more welcoming than the Spanish. I found, I think, due to the fact that they actually study English in schools. They quite welcome the opportunity to practice their English, but it's a bit of a rubbish excuse from me for not picking up the language so far. But as far as that, yeah, I'm down in the Algarve. The main cities are down here in the south, where typically you find it's a little warmer. The water's a little warmer. It's a little bit more of a relaxed kind of standard of living as well, compared to the likes of Lisbon, which is the main city centre. And up north, you have Porto being the third kind of hotspot as well. But yes, I'm down here in the south, and I'll be able to answer any questions you have regarding, of course, the Golden Visa, but also around financial planning, any questions around taxation, any general questions that you have around where to head to when you get here as well. So without further ado, I'm just going to share my screen with you, and we'll start at the top. And I'm just going to help out, first of all, those that are perhaps at the beginning of their Golden Visa journey to understand a little bit about what the program is, and ultimately help you to work out if it's something that you should be looking to consider. So let's jump on. So what is the program? So the Golden Visa is one of various routes to European citizenship. The program was launched in 2012, and it is one of Europe's, well, it is the most successful route to achieving European citizenship. And it's been tried and tested. There's been over 11,000 successful applications now that have been converted to citizenship. And the program is a 2-year visa. It allows you for 2 years at a time to have unadulterated access to live, work, and enjoy Portugal. And every 2 years, you can renew that visa. And after you've held a visa for a total of 5 years, you can then apply for your Portuguese passport, which effectively grants you 27 passports all at the same time, because at that point, you can actually live in any of the European member states. So yeah, there are different routes into European citizenship. Not all have been tried and tested. Not all of them result in a guaranteed passport, but the Golden Visa in Portugal has been around for quite some time and is certainly well tested. Now, as part of the visa, I mean, personally, I came to Portugal because of the standard of living. It's a very nice, relaxed kind of work-life balance. So in the south of Portugal, we have sunshine 300 days of the year, and it has everything. You know, it's not like it was 20, 30 years back when you felt you was in the middle of nowhere. It's still very well connected. You have transport links very easily to different cities within Portugal, and of course, very close by to the airport to get anywhere quite quickly within Europe. But there are also other key aspects to achieving for the visa apart from the weather. First of all is the education system and healthcare system through Portugal, two of the most highly rated systems anywhere in the world. As a Portuguese resident through the Golden Visa, you have exactly the same rights as you would do if you was a Portuguese citizen and you was actually born here. Other than you cannot vote and you cannot run for president. But apart from that, you have all the luxuries of being a Portuguese citizen here in Europe. The language is, well, in my quite humble opinion, is very difficult to learn, but most of our clients are generally managing to kind of crash course through to the required level of Portuguese within 3 to 4 months. Spain is just a couple of hours over the border from here as well. And yeah, like I say, you have everything that you need. And in my opinion, I think Portugal is the best place in Europe you can choose. But of course, I am biased because that's where I live. But nonetheless, so enough about Portugal. I'm going to briefly touch about the tax regime. I won't go into too much detail on tax this morning. However, one of the incentives for moving to Portugal is quite a unique tax regime, which is available to new residents for the first 10 years of which they live in Portugal. And this only applies once you become tax resident in Portugal. And just to clarify, first of all, that the Golden Visa is not linked to your tax status. Okay, you can be granted the visa. It doesn't mean that your tax status is going to change. Okay, your tax will stay exactly the same, regardless of the permissions that you have to live in Portugal until you physically live here. And when you do live here and you spend over 6 months of the year in Portugal, by default, you will become a Portuguese tax resident. Now, just before that point is a good time to start thinking about how to structure your income and your assets so that you don't fall foul of the change in tax law. Also, you want to make sure that you benefit from things like the NHR tax regime. And on certain income from abroad, such as pension income, such as rental income, such as income from dividends, whether it be from a personal company or that held of an investment portfolio, you can have a very low rate of tax, as low as 0%, depending on the source of that income. For particularly skilled individuals that are still working, whether on a self-employed or employed basis, you may qualify for a flat rate of tax of just 20% as well. For those that are looking to live in Portugal long term, in excess of 10 years, then there are also certain investment vehicles where you can hold your assets and draw income with up to a 60% discount on the income tax rate as well. So there's lots of tax incentives. That is just a few of the points regarding NHR. If you do want to ask questions around other topics to do with tax, more than happy to run through that with you and provide you with a free tax guide for Portugal. Again, I'll display my contact information towards the end. and you're very welcome to ask any questions in the Q&A at the bottom as well. However, moving on from the riveting topic of tax, let's get into why we're all here. And at the moment, there's a lot of talk around the end of the Portugal Golden Visa. There's been a lot of headlines flashing up all over the place around Portugal has finished the Golden Visa. The Golden Visa has ended. Portugal has abolished the Golden Visa. And I've had many people ask the question of, have I missed the boat? Is it too late? What happens now? And I just want to make something crystal clear for everybody that the program has not ended. Okay, there's a lot of copywriters, shall we say, that are looking to sell articles online and perhaps not fully understanding how the law works here in Portugal. But I can clarify that the law has not changed. Nothing has changed whatsoever at this point. To give you a clear understanding of what has been happening, as of November last year, the Prime Minister, Mr. António Costa, did announce that he feels that the Golden Visa program has now fulfilled its purpose and it no longer is required, and in some way may now be working to the detriment of the local Portuguese. So we were aware as of last year that the Portugal Golden Visa may be ending, but we did take it with a bit of a pinch of salt at that time. In February this year, it kind of reared its head again, and Mr. Costa did come out and make it very clear that the program is 100% going to finish as of the 16th of February. So at that point, all the headlines started to come out. There's a lot of misunderstanding of exactly what that means and what the process is involved to actually get to the point of the program no longer being in place. However, from that point, there was a draft proposal. Okay, so with a view to solve the housing crisis in Portugal, the removal of the Golden Visa was one of 16 potential repairs to the crisis that we're seeing. However, that topic, along with the other 15 topics, are then put to public discussion and to try and work out what is the best way of solving, first of all, the lack of social housing available in Portugal and the rate at which property prices are rapidly increasing. Prices in the past 2 years have increased by over 30%. And the Portugal Golden Visa has kind of been the scapegoat somewhat towards that, with some contradictory comment, but is one of the potential plans to help towards the crisis. But as of the 16th of February, the public discussion started on the preliminary draft changes in law, and that period was extended. I was hoping it was actually until just last week, and hence the date of the webinar today, so I could explain exactly what is the plan from here on out. But the public discussion has been extended, and largely due to quite a lot of backlash from various members of the public and different sectors about the huge impacts, negative impacts that these proposed changes could have on the Portuguese economy. Just this weekend, there was some strong comments from the Prime Minister of the Azores, also Madeira, quite simply saying that it just cannot happen. The problems that it would cause for the economy on those islands would just be disastrous. And the Prime Minister at this point is still in the process of taking on board everybody's opinion and trying to work out a way to solve the housing crisis in everybody's interest. So at this stage, it's very much alive. There is no confirmation that the program is going to end. We do feel, we are very confident that it is going to end. I think that will ultimately be the outcome. The only question is when. At the first announcement of the Prime Minister, the thought was an immediate end or one as soon as possible. But as of late, it's very difficult to say. But in a worst case scenario, there is still going to be a minimum amount of time before the program can be withdrawn. And should the voting be to cancel the program, it must then be ratified by the president, which, for record, has actually announced himself this week that he's in disagreement with a lot of the proposed changes. But however, even in the event that the president was to permit and pass the law, it is still going to take us up until really the middle of May, the end of May, before that law can physically change. So it's not an immediate panic just yet, but you should be aware that if the program is something that you're considering, whether it be over the next few years, that there is a very high chance that the program will cease to exist within the next 2 to 3 months. So if it is something that you are considering at some point in the future, my advice is to take action as quickly as possible and to start exploring the facts that you need to work out if it's something that you wish to continue with. And there is a more imminent problem than the program being withdrawn, and that is the lack of availability of quality investment properties. Since the announcement on the 16th of February, there has been a huge rush. There's been a 50% uplift in the number of applications for the visa since the 16th of February. And I mean, we've seen it firsthand that we are running out of stock. And the slightly worrying thing is that from the different developers in Portugal, they're all very much hesitant to bring new property to market whilst they are unaware of when the program may end. Naturally, it's very risky for a developer to continue building or launch new projects if, in fact, the program may cease in the next 2 to 3 months. So they made it very clear that until they know further about the program, there aren't going to be any new properties come to market. So the stock that you see currently advertised, once that is gone, it is gone. And I personally feel that if the program is not extended until at least the end of this year, into 2024, I'll find it very unlikely that that would change. So the developments out there, certainly the ones that that have a good element of investment, are already sold out or selling out very soon. The majority of the developments that we had just 1 month ago have been sold. There are still some good options available, but they are very limited in supply, and an imminent threat is that there may be no further properties to choose from by the end of next week. I would not be surprised if they were fully sold by next week. I'll tell you a little bit more about how we source properties in a moment, but to give you a bit of background on Holborn, we have conducted over 10% of the world's Golden Visa applications since the program was launched back in 2012. We also have a 100% success rate on our applications as well. So we know what we're doing. We just want to highlight that we're not an estate agent, so we're not looking at, we don't just show you any property at all. First and foremost, we are a wealth management practice, and our reputation to provide good and accurate advice is paramount to the success of our ongoing wealth management practice. So we are very careful when we come to recommending property investments in Portugal, and we only work with the most long-standing and credible developers in Portugal with a good track record and a healthy portfolio and a strong cash flow and so forth. We don't work with kind of one-man bands, because you don't have to go too far to see certain horror stories of properties not being built and so on. But as far as the properties available with good developers, with good incentives, they are very few and far between. So, but that's the kind of negatives out of the way. Like I said, the program is still very much alive and well. But just want to reiterate, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask. And I'll do my best to make sure you have all the information that you need before the program comes to an end. The date that we need to aim for to give you that kind of peace of mind is to submit an application before the date that the program is withdrawn. Okay, you do not need to receive your visa before the withdrawal date. Okay, you only need to have submitted your application. Once you've done that, you'll be in the ARI system. You'll have a processing number, and any changes in law after that date will be null and void, and you'll be protected by the current laws in play at the time of your application. So that's the goal. If it is something that you're serious about, you want to be doing everything in your power right now to be getting a good property and an application submitted before the withdrawal of the program. In a worst case scenario, like I say, we could be looking at May for the program to cease. After that date, it's difficult to say at this stage what will be the process thereafter and if it will still be available. So before you're able to submit an application, okay, there is a lot of work to do beforehand, okay, including investing in a qualifying asset, as well as achieving tax numbers, setting up a bank account, and certain things we need to do beforehand. But we'll come on to that shortly. So let's look at the basics, okay, of the problem. So who can apply, first of all, for the visa? So anyone that doesn't have an EU passport can apply for the Golden Visa. And there is one main applicant, okay, and that main applicant can add members of their family as dependents. And dependents are defined as the following. First of all, you can add your spouse, whether it be married or unmarried, as long as you're living together, you can add your spouse. You can include children up to the age of 18 or older if they're in education or dependent, or perhaps living at home. And also you can include parents, if you want to bring your parents, of course. But if your parents are over the age of 65, dependency is not, you don't need to prove dependency above that age. If they are younger than 65, then potentially we can still add them, but we must then prove dependency to do so. But the visa is designed to be able to bring 3 generations of family across to Portugal, and ultimately everyone has the same right to a passport after 5 years, which means everyone that is included on the visa will have, like I say, the ability to live anywhere in Europe after that time, and as much as they like in Portugal during those first 5 years. Hope that's nice and clear. Again, any questions as to who can be included on the visa, feel free to put a question in the Q&A box, and we shall pick up on that towards the end. Now, as far as what types of investments you can choose from, this is something that does quite regularly change. Okay, well, this is the current criteria as of right now. And the most popular way to qualify for the visa is through investing into real estate. 95% of applications currently are being done with real estate investment. The rules did change slightly as to what type of real estate qualifies at the beginning of last year, and the government announced that you can no longer purchase residential property in any of the main cities such as Lisbon, Porto, or pretty much anywhere on the coast where there is a tourism demand. Instead, you now must buy a commercial property if you wish to buy in those areas, or in other words, a property that's not for you to live in, but purely as an investment, something that's a completely hands-off investment. Maybe somewhere you can stay for your holidays, but in the main, it is to be rented out, and it must be a commercial property. You can still buy residential property in outside of those main areas. You know, if you want to buy inland, out in the campo, in inland, you can do so. However, in those areas, you don't have the tourism and you don't have the rental demand. So as a standalone investment, you'll find it difficult or more difficult inland. But if you found a house that you wanted to live in and you knew exactly where it was and it was inland, then you can still potentially qualify for the visa that way. But in the main, the Golden Visa, one of the real plus points is that the minimum stay requirements is only 2 weeks. You only have to stay in Portugal for 2 weeks every 2 years to maintain that visa. So for the majority of those considering the visa, the chances are you're not going to be living here straight away all of the time. So naturally, it's important to be able to have a rental income for the time that you're not here. And also, of course, to maintain the value of the investment and the resale value when it's no longer needed. So more often than not, Lisbon, Porto, and the Algarve is where you need to be to tick those boxes. And in turn, now it is considering a commercial property to do so. So commercial property is broken down really into 2 criteria. You can either buy you can actually buy a share in a hotel, if you like, or you can buy an apartment within a hotel, or a property within a hotel complex, but it must be a commercial complex. And I'll show you some examples of that shortly. The price point is 500,000 euros, the standard price point to qualify. However, if you buy a property in what is deemed to be a low density area, then you can have a 20% discount from that, bringing the minimum down to just 400,000. The only way to reduce it lower than 400,000, okay, is to invest in a commercial project which is going through a full government-approved renovation, okay, where the building is over 30 years old, And if so, the minimum comes down to 350. And if you can do all of that within a low density area, then the minimum comes down to 280,000. Now, we've put together a portfolio of recommended assets and properties that meet each one of those price points. And you'll find, as a general rule of thumb, the closer that you invest to 500,000, the more profitable the investments are as standalone investments. The closer you invest to 280, you'll find the investments are less profitable. However, the big advantage is, of course, it's almost half as much capital required to get the visa and the passports. So it's just really a personal preference of yours to choose, a nice balance between those two, whether or not to just minimize capital to get the visa and not worry too much about profitability, or again, invest that extra capital, get the passports, and make some good returns as well. So we'll look at those in a moment. If you don't fancy investing into property, okay, it's not the only option. You can invest into a Portuguese investment fund or a venture capital fund. The rules are quite rigid, somewhat by way that you must invest into over 60%. The fund must invest into over 60% of Portuguese assets, which does restrict the investment returns somewhat. They're generally not the same investment funds you would perhaps choose to invest into from the worldwide market. But there are still, low, medium, and high risk funds to choose from that meet the criteria from 500,000 euros. Again, that increased last year from 350. Venture capital fund is another option. There are some wild and wonderful projects to choose from in Portugal, whether anything from building a farm or getting involved in renewable energy. And there are different projects that you can get involved with, which need a little bit of extra thought and planning, I think, and have their own kind of individual risk rating, if you will, involved. But again, happy to talk through those options. The option for scientific research, okay, you can invest into Portugal's scientific research if you wish. If that's your thing, from 500,000 euros, you can set up a Portuguese business of any kind. It can be you can set up a nice wine and cheese tasting restaurant if you wish, or to whatever takes your fancy. However, the investment must be from 500,000, and you must employ a minimum number of staff for a period of time as well. And again, you can set up a new business, or you can look to purchase an existing business. And last but not least, if you want to keep it nice and simple, you can simply transfer 1.5 million euros into a Portuguese bank account for 5 years. Strangely, I've not met anybody that's decided to do that just yet. Portugal is probably not the best place to hold 1.5 million euros. The banking system is not quite as robust as the likes of the US or the UK, for example, and also the interest rates are not particularly incentivizing either. However, if you wanted something nice and easy and you had 1.5 million euros to just leave in the bank for 5 years, then that is an option also. But other than that, those are the different routes to the visa. And in summary, 95% of applications are done through property, which requires a minimum investment of 280,000 euros up to upwards of 500,000. So I hope that was nice and clear. Again, any questions on what type of properties qualify? Hope I've covered everything, but please drop a message in the Q&A and I'll make sure we'll come back to that shortly. Okay, right. A bit of a busy slide, this one, but I suppose it's a bit of a busy process as well. But this is the timeline, if you will, from start to finish, from the point of right now, starting the process to receiving the actual visa card in your hand. So step number one is to find an investment. Okay, before we come on to these bits here, first thing you need to do is find an investment that ticks your boxes, that meets the criteria for the visa, as we just looked at a moment ago. And once you have agreed on which investment you wish to proceed with, okay, we need to then start the process of investing into that property or the fund, however you see fit. However, before we can do any of that, the first thing we need to apply for is your tax number, okay, which is referred to as your NIF. And in most cases, we need to set up a bank account before you can complete that investment also. That's the first thing we need to do. That is the first port of call before we can do any investing, is to set up a bank account and a tax number. Once we have those two things, okay, you'll be requested by the lawyer to transfer the capital to your new Portuguese bank account. And once the legal work is completed, you will then complete the deed for the property. You'll become the owner of the property, or you will invest into the fund. Now, the moment that you've done that is when we can apply for your visa. And we have ticked the boxes: bank account, tax number, qualifying investment. Immediately, we then submit your application for the visa. Once that is done, that's when you can have a bit of a sigh of relief, because you're going to be then in the system, your application is being processed. And then if the program is withdrawn thereafter, again, that will not impact your application. So that's what we need to do between now and when the program is withdrawn, whenever that may be, is to get to the point of submitting your application. So thereafter, my team we'll pretty much take it from there. We make this as easy as we can for you. There's a lot of moving parts within the process, but you can kind of see me as like the project manager. Within my team, we will have somebody to submit your application for your residency. There'll be someone to apply for your tax number. There'll be somebody to help set up the bank account. There'll be a lawyer, of course, involved acting for the purchase or the investment into the fund. There may be a property manager, there may be a developer. There may be some advice needed along the way as far as finances or currency exchange. Okay, we are an all-encompassing service. Okay, and you'll always have myself as a point of contact, as well as 3 or 4 members of my team at any one time, holding your hand right through until when you get your passport in 5 years' time. But from the point of resubmitting your application, we will then keep you up to date with the process. We'll be waiting for an appointment with CEF, okay, and around about 6 months after that application, you'll need to fly to Portugal. You'll meet with the lawyer who will accompany you to the CEF office. CEF is the Portuguese immigration office, and you'll need to do your biometrics. You'll take your fingerprints, they will take your photo, ready for issuing your visa card, which looks a little bit like that one there down at the bottom. The whole process at the moment, from the submission stage to receiving the visa in your hand, is taking about 12 months. Okay. However, last year, when the rules changed, when the law changed, there was a delay. Applications were taking significantly longer. There was a bit of a backlog with CEF. There was a whole meltdown at the CEF office where they couldn't process new applications because of the new law. So applications were taking a little longer. They're back up to speed now. However, there has been, as mentioned before, around a 50% uplift in demand for golden visas since the announcement on the 16th of February. So there's a lot of people going through the same process. Common sense applies. The process to get the visa may take a little longer, but I would say somewhere between 12 to 14, 15 months perhaps by that time. To be clear, you do not need to receive the visa before the program is withdrawn. You only need to have applied for it to secure your application. Okay, that's it, piece of cake. That's the process to get the visa in hand. Once you have the visa, you have then full access to Portugal for yourself and your family. You can live, work, study, retire, sunbathe, run, do whatever you like within Portugal for as long as you like. You no longer have the restriction of 3 months in Portugal. So you have then a 2-year visa. Okay, the golden visa lasts for 2 years, and you renew every 2 years. And you can renew it every 2 years for the rest of your life, if you wish. However, after you've held the visa for just 5 years, you can then apply for your permanent residency and your citizenship. Okay, generally we do both. For some of our clients, their home country will not allow dual citizenship, nor do they wish to sacrifice the passport that they have. So often we'll simply apply for permanent residency. However, in the main, we will also apply for the passport as well. It's a pretty straightforward process. The only kind of caveat to do the permanent residency and citizenship application is that you must have understood some relatively basic Portuguese. Okay, there is a written and spoken exam, which you must pass. As I mentioned before, it's taken the majority of our clients around 4 months-ish to kind of crash course that information from scratch. But yeah, so it's kind of like a high school equivalent, let's say age 16, equivalent to understanding Portuguese. However, you can do that, and you can keep a clean criminal record. you're in the clear. We then submit your application, we receive the passport, you then have full access to settle, work or study anywhere in the European Union, okay? And you have visa-free access to 187 countries worldwide. So that's the prize. That is what it's all there for. Okay, so again, hopefully that's nice and clear. Any questions on the process, please do just drop a question in the Q&A. As a quick recap for now, first step is to find an investment that you like, okay? Find something that meets your budget, that ticks all the boxes, okay? And we will help you to find, and we'll show you some recommendable investment options in a moment. But once you have agreed on which one you want to invest into, and we then start the process. And we should be in a position to apply for the visa within 1 to 3 months. Typically, we want to do that a little quicker these days. We're getting into that position within 3 weeks at the moment. We are really fast tracking applications whilst we still have this window of opportunity before the program is withdrawn. But yeah, that's the plan. So we'll say 3 to 4 weeks to be able to submit the application once we start the process. It'll take around 12 months, maybe a little longer to receive the visa. That'll then last for 2 years. We renew after year 2, we renew again after year 4. And then after we've held the visa for 5 years, we shall submit your application for permanent residency and your passport. Okay. So, other than that, that is the process really. Let's just as a quick recap before we go on to have a look at some of the investment options. It is an all-encompassing service, okay? We've been through the process thousands of times. We've done over 10% of the world's global Golden Visa applications. We have a 100% success rate on our applications as well. And yeah, we try and make it as easy as we can throughout the process. But it all begins with finding an investment that meets your requirements. So I'm just going to show you some of what's currently available as of this morning, as far as what we feel are good good quality investments, okay, as far as the developer, okay, they've got a good track record, they have good cash flow, the hotel in most cases has already been built, they have some great incentives, there's a mixture of buyback options and rental incomes paid and taxes paid and all these wonderful things. And as a rule of thumb, generally the closer that you invest to 500,000, the better the incentives get. But the big advantage of those at 280 is, of course, half as much money to be able to achieve the passport. Okay, so let's jump in. So here's a classic example of how you can invest into a commercial property at 280,000. Okay, I'm sure most people on the call will have come across the Holiday Inn hotel group, and there is a hotel being refurbished as we speak in Beja, which is inland Portugal between Lisbon and the Algarve. And the idea behind the project is when it's all finished, it will be a 4-star Holiday Inn. Okay, exactly as you see in the photos. And this is a very, very simple investment proposition. Okay, the developer is offering a certain number of investors to invest 280,000 euros to buy a share in their hotel. They will become a co-owner of the hotel. Okay, their name will go onto the deeds of the hotel along with the 59 other investors. The developer is Portugal's biggest developer. Okay, they've been around for over 30 years, so they have a very handsome portfolio of different 4- and 5-star hotels with various different hotel groups, including Hilton, Sheraton, Marriott, as well as you can see, the Holiday Inn. And the incentives, quite simply, for those that have bought in Portugal before, you'll be aware that when you buy any property, there is always an upfront tax, often between 5 to 10% of the property price. The first incentive by the developer is that they will actually cover those initial taxes for you. So although there's no rental income or no returns as such, they will significantly reduce the capital needed to purchase by basically covering the tax at the outset. There is a buyback in place as well. So a very clear exit strategy. As soon as you've been granted your passport after the 5 years, it is a mandatory buyback contract. So you must sell the share for the same price. Okay, there's no interest. It's 280 in. There's 280 back out when you have your passports, and the developer will allow you to stay for 7 days free of charge in any of the developments in Portugal during each of those 5 years. So it's as simple as that. Huge hotel developer, big hotel chain with the Holiday Inn. Very simple, 280 in, 280 back out when you've got your passport, and you can enjoy holiday each year at any of the hotels. So that's door number one. Okay, door number two is the Wyndham Hotel, which is still available. There are still some slots left at the Wyndham Hotel, which is being, again, renovated as we speak, about an hour south of Lisbon in a town called Alcácer do Sol. Please excuse my poor Manchester pronunciation of that. However, when it's all done, it will be a 4-star Wyndham Hotel, exactly as you see in the photos there. It's right on the waterfront as well. And the proposition is very similar as before. You can buy a share for 280,000 euros, become a co-owner of the hotel. It's a substantial developer. Again, they've been around for a very long time. Not quite as big as the first, but still a handsome portfolio of properties here in Portugal. They also will pay the taxes involved for the purchase. They will also offer a guaranteed buyback after the 5 years. The big incentive with this one, and why this one is going to sell quicker than the one we just looked at, is that they are the only developer since I've been working in this sector of golden visas that will pay an upfront rental of 30,000 euros at this price point of 280. So another way of looking at it is you're buying a share for 250 and going to be selling that back at 280. Okay, and that 30,000 difference you can use to cover all of the legal fees, all of the government fees, and to leave yourself with a nice profit as well. So you actually get paid for getting your visa with this particular development because of that 30,000 upfront payment. And also you can stay for 7 days each year free of charge in any of the developers' hotels, which of course maintains the minimum stay requirements for your visa. So that's door number two. Okay, this is the lowest capital option to get the visa anywhere in Portugal. Okay, it is going to be sold out, I'm confident, if not by the end of this week, at some point next week. Because of that reason, there is less capital that you need to get the passports going through this option than anything else in Portugal right now. But I hope that's nice and clear. Again, any questions, please do ask. Or any of these hotels, by the way, or developments that we look at, if you would like a personalized cost breakdown for your family, please do send me an email. Okay, my contact details will come up shortly. You'll also have an email from my colleague Zoe earlier today as well. Just please let us know how many family members you'd like to include on the visa and which of the developments are of interest, and we can provide you with a full cost breakdown from start to finish. Okay, that's door number two. Door number three, my personal favorite. Okay, this one has actually been sold out. This one was sold out. It is sold out, but I'll show it to you. It's only recently sold out. It's been sold out because there's been a lot of applications over the past couple of weeks, but one does tend to pop up back for sale every now and then if a buyer has struggled to get the capital together. So still worth making note. If it is something of interest, please do let me know, and we'll make sure that we get first refusal. I can certainly speak to the developer to see if any other units are due to come back up for sale. But this hotel is already built. Okay, it's half an hour from where I live in a town called Alvor, down in the centre of the Algarve. It's already a fully functioning 4-star hotel on booking.com, but it is in much need of, should we say, a lick of paint. It's very year 2000. Very dated. You'd be a bit disappointed if you stayed at the hotel at the moment. And that is why it's just closed the doors in January for a full renovation. Okay. And by the end of this year, early next year, it will be complete and it will be finished with a all-inclusive, as new 4-star hotel very close to the sea. Okay, you can see how close it is there to the sea from the back. And the difference with this one, okay, is that you actually buy an individual apartment. You're not buying a share in the hotel. You're buying an individual property within the complex, and you're buying the full title deed ownership of that property. Again, the developer pays the upfront taxes. Slight difference with the buyback. It's still a guaranteed buyback. Okay, so in a worst case scenario, you will still sell the apartment back for the same price that you paid for it. However, it is an optional buyback. meaning that you don't have to sell it back should you not wish to. If property prices go up in the next 5 years, like they have done in the last 5 years, there's a good chance you might not want to sell it back at the same price. So with this one, you have the option to cancel that buyback after 4 years. Or should I say you decide after 4 years whether or not to keep it after the 5 years. So I think that's a nice plus. Again, I wouldn't bank on property prices going up in the next 5 years. They might do, they might not do. Hopefully they don't in certain ways, because like I said, they've gone up over 30% in the past 2 years. And if the Prime Minister and President are successful with helping solve the housing crisis, then hopefully they will maintain property prices in some way. However, it's a nice plus, because even though you might not want to sell it at that point, you can also rent it. If you do keep the property, the hotel will pay, works out to be about 5% per year as a rental income up until year 10 as well, with a view to extend that should you wish. And you can stay here for 2 weeks every year instead of just 1 week as well. So good option, slightly different. Like I say, it's fully sold out at the moment, but I'm confident one at least will come back up for sale over the next week. So let me know if this is of interest, and we can give you the full costings in the meantime. The price, please excuse the typo, but it's between 280 and 295, depending on which floor and which side of the hotel that the apartment is on. Okay, so they are, as far as we are concerned, they are the 3 best investments at that lowest price point of 280. Okay, as you go further up the ladder, I don't think there's a lot of incentives to buy between 280 and 500. I think for me, either buy at 280 and minimize capital, or if within budget, go up 500 where you have the most incentives. There isn't really a lot of incentive in between. But as an example, there's a nice hotel being built at Lisbon Airport. This one, again, you can buy a share in the hotel. However, the share costs 350,000. Okay. Again, you become a co-owner of the hotel. The developer pays all the taxes, you have the buyback, you have 7 days free stay, but you also have a 3% per year return from when the hotel is built as well, which may not all be all that long that you would get that income for by the time you sell the share back, but you would expect around about 10,000 as a return. So it's just whether or not that 10,000 is worth investing an extra 70,000 over the next 5-6 years. That is up to you. But a good example, okay, there's a nice development. If you wanted to be in Porto, okay, if you wanted to invest in Porto, there is really nice development in a real nice part of Porto, which when it's finished will be all self-serviced apartments, finished as you see there on pictures. The proposition is that you can buy an apartment from 350,000 euros. It's full title deed ownership, okay, so you're buying the individual property as opposed to a share in a hotel. They guarantee a rental income of 3.5% per year for 5 years. However, there's no buyback on this one, which personally I think is a real good thing to have. You know, you cannot always bank on prices increasing in value. And with no buyback, you also need to factor in the cost of things like an estate agent to sell the property, also a lawyer to sell the property, which are all costs to be subtracted from the rental income ultimately. So I think as a standalone investment, there's not a huge argument for this one at the moment until the other ones sell out, but it's still a good option, still a very viable option. Like I said, prices currently are flying in Portugal. There's a good chance they may continue over the next 5 years, but you can never know for sure. So that's Porto. The Pelican Hotel, again, I think has been sold out now. There may be a 2-bedroom left in this one. There may be a 2-bedroom left available. This one sold out very quickly because it is one of the few developments that's paying an upfront rental income. It's already built, okay, it's already on booking.com. The renovation is already finished. It's in Alvor, right behind the Yellow Tulip that we looked at before. But this one, it qualifies at 400,000. The 1 beds were for sale at 400. The 2 beds for sale from 450. Again, it's a full title deed ownership. It's not a hotel share. The big incentive with this one is the developer is paying a rental income of 5.2% per year on the one beds for 6 years. They actually pay 6 years rental all up front, which means that the one beds for 400,000, you actually buy the 306, and you have a buyback for 400. So you have a very clear profit margin there with that upfront rental income. The two beds at 450, the rental income is 4% per year, which allows you to buy at 369 and sell back at 450, which again, very clear profit margin there as well, which covers all the costs of visas and passports and legal fees and so on, and a nice profit thereafter. The buyback is optional. Okay, so in a worst case, you sell back at 400 or 450, but you can keep it if you like and continue with the rental income annually from that time, or look to sell it on the open market. And you can stay here for 4 weeks every year as well. Okay, other than that, I just want to try and get to our Q&A section. I'm just going to quickly run through some other good options. A nice development in the centre of Lisbon, brand new development of 3 and 4 bedroom villas, starting price 512,000. This one doesn't pay any upfront rental income, however, so it is the top of the price point. But really nice development. You can have a guaranteed rental of 3 to 6% per year. You can have a profit share of 7 to 10%, or you can actually live in this development. It's one of the few commercial premises you can live in full time, which would be at the sacrifice of the rental income. The grand finale, again, which is sold out. There is one potentially coming back for sale on this one. A client of mine has informed me this week that he's struggling to proceed as things stand. So they maybe won't come back for sale at the Royal Obidos, but if it is and it's in budget, I would jump on it. This is officially the most profitable Golden Visa qualifying investment in Portugal. It is a 5-star purpose-built golf and spa resort, actually on a PGA golf course just north of Lisbon on the Silver Coast. It's already built. Okay, that is exactly how it looks now, apart from all the grass is properly grown in now, and everything is sea view. Okay, golf, sea and pool facing, depending on exactly where, but you can see the apartments that are for sale. The hotel is not for sale, by the way. The individual apartments at the front are those for sale. And it's not a renovation project or a low density area. Okay, it's just a brand new development qualifying at 500, which leaves you with 2 options. Okay, you can buy 2 studios at 350 each. Okay, there are still studios available, by the way, so you can still definitely buy 2 studios at 350 each. And like I say, potentially there is the option for a 1 bed at 500,000. The rental income, okay, before tax is paid at 7% per year. And the developer is offering to pay 5 years rental income up front as well. After tax, it still works out at 5.25% per year. Okay, which is a substantial discount. So those 2 studios at 700,000, you would actually be buying for 500,000 with an optional buyback at 700. Okay, so a clear profit margin of 200,000 euros. And the 1 bed you can buy at 369, shall we say, with a buyback at 500. Yeah, very clear profit margin. The buyback is optional. Okay, and you can stay here for 6 weeks every year as well. But what we did for another client is we arranged for them to have 2 apartments for 3 weeks rather than 1 for 6, which they wanted to come out and play golf with some friends. So yeah, if Royal Obidos is within budget, it has been the best-selling, most profitable development anywhere we can find in Portugal. Please do let me know if you're interested in this development. I will do my best to see if we can get a 1 bed, or like I said, the studios are still fully available as things stand. Okay, right, I'm gonna have to take a breath from talking. It's a picture of me when I had slightly less hair. But that's me done, really. That's covered everything. So I've got quite a lot of questions coming in. So we'll jump in. If you would like to ask some questions, now's your time to post them. Just whilst we go on to that. For anything that I've covered, okay, you have my email address on the screen. Okay, you have my contact number for WhatsApp and the office phone number. If you'd like any brochures for any of the developments that we've seen, if you'd like the Portugal tax guide, if you'd like a cost breakdown for your family, all these things are available. Just send me an email with some basic information and we'll come back to you. I will come back to you myself with the information that you need as soon as I can. Okay, but let's see what we've got. So, hello there, Mohammed. Sir, help me, please. No problem, Mohammed. I'll do my best. Sir, what should I do to get a visa? Okay, lots of questions from Mohammed there. So I think I've actually covered most of your questions there, Mohammed. So if not, please do drop me an email and we'll go into any further specifics. Hi there, Michael. My question is about renewals. I understand that applications made before the change of law are protected, but I don't see how this guarantees renewals and therefore eventually citizenship. Okay, so what these two talking points with the change in law, Michael, one is the withdrawal program, which as things stand, we think will happen, but we don't know when just yet. The second talking point is, of course, the rules to the renewals of the visa as well. So there's talk around the ability to renew visas if you don't live in the property. So just to put a bit of context on what exactly is being talked about there. The main talking point of Parliament at the moment is, of course, the lack of available housing. And in years gone by, investors have purchased residential property in Portugal, which have been kept vacant. Quite simply, before the rules changed last year, you were able to buy residential property as a holiday home, second home, a future retirement home, which ultimately is just sat there vacant. And one potential solution to the lack of housing available is to basically insist that these vacant properties are listed for rental. And to do that, the incentive is that if you do have vacant property, that if you're not living in it, then you're going to have to rent it out. So couple of things around. First of all, it's targeted at residential property. Okay, it's not targeted at commercial property. Naturally, hotels are already fully rented out for 100% of the time through a managing agent. Okay, naturally, also they're not residential properties, but like I say, there is a want to get these vacant residential properties back for availability on the market. We don't think, first of all, that even the residential properties will be impacted by it, because it would be unconstitutional to retrospectively change the law as to what grants a renewal. Okay, of course, there are thousands of people that have invested millions of pounds in Portugal on the premise that they will get citizenship after a period of time. So to retrospectively change those laws is unconstitutional, and for that reason, we don't think it will happen. In fact, we're pretty categorically certain it can't happen. But in the meantime, again, it's not something that is designed around commercial property. Hopefully that helps, Michael. Obviously, please do drop me an email. I'll keep you posted as things progress. If there's any more updates on that particular topic. Okay, hi, Dionisio. Hopefully that was good pronunciation. Can I apply first for a golden visa and apply for my children a few years later after I've received my golden visa, because they are too young to travel now? My youngest is 6 months old. Yes, there's many ways to do that, Dionisio. That's fine. We can apply to add your family at a later date through a family reunification. We can also add your children as well. In the meantime, if again only 6 months old, they don't have to study Portuguese just yet to get onto the visa. So yeah, that's fine. We can do that many ways. Okay, Mohammed. Option number one. Not too sure what you mean there, Mohammed. You'll have to clarify. You're saying you prefer option number one? I don't know. Pop in another question. Hi there, Michael. Could you please elaborate on the capital transfer? I assume this means investing as I see fit. This seems to be the easiest and most straightforward option. Capital transfer is as simple as it sounds, really, Michael. You simply need to hold 1.5 million euros with a Portuguese bank account, not invested, just as cash. You must hold it in cash for the duration of the 5 years. Okay. It's as simple as that. You'll find it very difficult to achieve really any interest going down that route. Naturally, you'd want to consider the risks of holding that sum in a Portuguese bank account that by law is only covered up to 100,000 as well. Hopefully we don't see any banks go out of business in Portugal, but in that event, you just have to be mindful of the risk involved above the 100,000 that's protected with the compensation scheme. The easiest option, Michael, in all fairness, is, again, easier is just to hold. I would personally go into property, even if you bought at 280, buy a share at 280, you keep back 1.2 million and keep it in your own bank account, or invest that however you wish, and simply have under 300,000 in Portugal in a money in, money out program. Much easier, much more secure, and in some cases much faster as well. I'll explain why it's faster, certainly on a one-to-one meeting. Michael, if you'd like to chat later this week, but hopefully that helps in the meantime. Thanks, Mohammed. Glad you're happy with that answer. Super. Hi there, Richard. This is great, Jason, and couldn't be more timely. I'm from the US, and we are looking at quickly purchasing and applying for the visa. The only obstacle we are seeing right now is right now to completing by the end of March is the apostille process in the US. It takes 8 weeks, which is crazy. Do you have US clients who have run into this, and is there any way around it? Yes, Richard, there is a way around it. Well, I'll rephrase that. There isn't a way around it. However, we can give you some breathing space as far as the time concerned. Okay, we help you with all the apostille process. We have some good contacts to share, and we can speed up that process more often than not. However, if push comes to shove and we have an imminent deadline to submit your application, we are able to submit the application before it is apostilled. It's not the ideal way of doing it, but to get you in the system and to get that process in numbered before the withdrawal date, it is not absolutely mandatory to have the apostille. So as long as we have copies of things like the criminal record check and the identification documents and so forth, we can still make sure that your application is submitted before the deadline. My advice in the meantime is just to start as soon as possible. But as an emergency, okay, then yes, we'll be okay. So don't panic. Okay. Okay. Hi there, Michael. I remain uncertain that the renewals are guaranteed. Okay, so the renewals, I assume, Michael, on the visa. Okay, best thing I can do on this, Michael, is to first of all, I can provide you with a copy of the preliminary draft proposal to the change in law, also some further commentary on these potential changes as well, to give you a little bit of reassurance, and we'll know for certain as of the. Well, I expect we'll know for certain as of the 30th of March, and we will have the final draft of the changes in law. So at that point, we're going to be able to give you some more clarity on that point. But yeah, stay in touch, Michael. I'm happy to provide you with my commentary and keep you up to date with everything as things progress. But like I said, I don't think we're going to see any problems with that. I cannot see that being withheld to retrospectively change the process for renewals of visas. Okay, question from Anonymous. Is this timeline still accurate? Approval and CEF appointments were backed up more than a year recently. Yeah, the timeline currently is, as I say, right now about 12 months from start to finish, from submitting the application to getting the visa. Last year, there was a backlog with CEF. When the laws changed, the CEF's computer systems literally blew up with the changes in law. Very Portuguese thing to happen, but yeah, there was a big backlog where no new applications were processed for 3 months. There was a big backlog. Processing time was taking a lot longer, but that was last year. We're now back up to around about 12 months. However, we do see, of course, with the uplifted new applications over the past month, that time might be extended again with everyone rushing to make the deadline. But yeah, overall, still up to date. Okay, hi there, Stephen. When does the time period start? Is it from the application submission or issue of the dates of the visa? What would the gap if it takes 6 months to get the visa, does 5 years start from 7 months? Yes, so the process to get the visa in hand is about 12 months, roughly. And the 5 years starts from when you have the visa. Okay, so it's only after you've had the visa in your hand that the clock starts ticking for those 5 years. Now, to get the visa is going to take you about 12 months. So in total, you're probably going to hold the property for close to 6 years. You'll have it for 12 months when you apply, and then you'll need it for a full 5 years once you have the visa. So you're going to have the property for longer than 5 years, when the clock starts ticking from the issue of the visa. However, the cutoff for the withdrawal of the program, okay, you only have to have applied before the withdrawal date. You don't need to have received your visa before the program is withdrawn. So that's okay. Okay, hi Anonymous. Golden Visa renewals in person or online every 2 years. They are now online, which has saved a lot of time. For some reason, as of literally last year, you had to fly over and redo your fingerprints every 2 years, which didn't really make a lot of sense because your fingerprints generally don't change unless you've been in the bath a bit too long. So yeah, they scrapped that and now it's all done online. It's a very simple process. Okay. Notice, have you had any Golden Visa projects fail or know of any that have failed after investment as a result of COVID delays? And what happens in such an event? I'm proud to say that we have never had a project fail. No, for many reasons. Nor have we had any applications decline. We do a lot of due diligence on the properties before we market them. You have to understand that we manage over $3 billion between our 20 offices worldwide. We have a lot to lose by getting involved with poor property developers that do not deliver on the promises that they offer. Ultimately, Holborn are putting our name to these different developments, and it's in our interest to make sure that they come to fruition. It doesn't take too much these days to get a bad reputation. And the last thing we want to do when we launched this program a few years back was, again, at the fault of various developers in Portugal, impact our reputation as a wealth manager. So yeah, we've done that job pretty well. We seek legal counsel before marketing. We go into a lot of due diligence generally before marketing any kind of property, and all of them have done well. We also do the same due diligence on our clients to make sure that there's no reason you will be declined for your application as well. Other than that, yeah, no, I mean, of course, there are developers in Portugal generally. There's just down in Albufeira, right in the marina, there is a beautiful development, which I always look at and think how nice it would be overlooking the sea. And it's just stone, empty blocks of building. It's been there for years. So developments do go wrong, or they don't get built. So you've got to be careful with these things. But again, that's why I'd like to think we give you a bit of peace of mind that we are only putting to you good, either already built developments that are already there and already on booking.com, or with developers that have a good, flawless track record as well. What happens in such an event then? Well, it depends on the event. If the project is not finished, often a new developer may come in to finish the project. If the management agency decides to sell, another management agency generally comes in. If a project is not even off the ground, maybe the project is cancelled entirely, but never happened as far as our recommendations. But just have your wits about you if you are buying privately. Okay, hope that was okay. Hi there, Richard. Is there any risk that we make the investment and the announcement the government made that the changes to law would be retroactive to the 16th or retroactive to February turns out to be accurate? We take the risk on this one, Richard. You'll find within our contracts that in the event that there is any issues as far as your application being accepted, by the time you get to that point, we keep the funds fully refundable. Okay, so there isn't that risk. Also, by the time we actually get through to an application, we will already know the process from the government as well, which we'll find out in about 9 days' time. So only thing you can really do at this point, Richard, is to start the process, get your bank account ready, get your tax numbers in place, and the rest we will not at any point be putting any capital at risk. And yeah, you'll see that we have amended our contracts to cover you in a worst case scenario as well. Okay, so I hope that's okay, Richard. Hi there, Mr. and Mrs. Hamilton. What if you want to live in the Azores? Azores is okay, I think, for residential at the moment. I'll have to check that. But yeah, as long as it meets the criteria for 400,000 in the Azores. Should be okay. Should be fine. But yeah, if there's anything in particular you're looking at there, Mr. Hamilton, please send me an email and I'll give you some clarity on that. Hi there, Michael. I don't understand the argument around unconstitutionality for the renewal of the visas, and the route to citizenship is a different law altogether, which absolutely can be changed. Not too sure what else I can tell you on that one, Michael. Like I said, to retrospectively change laws is something that by law cannot be done. And I think we'll find that out over the coming weeks. As far as the route to citizenship, there's nothing that's up for discussion at the moment that is to change that. Quite simply, if you've had a visa of any kind and lived in Portugal for 5 years, you're entitled to citizenship. So that part, as far as anyone is aware, is not up for discussion. So I don't see any reason why that should change. And again, for the reasons mentioned, we don't think that the laws can be changed retrospectively. So again, we'll find that out over the coming weeks. And if you'd like clarity on that, Michael, please stay in touch. We can speak on maybe shortly after the 30th, and I can give you the full rundown on that and alleviate any doubts that you may have. So other than that, Richard, yeah, thank you. Glad I answered your question. Any other questions, Richard? Send me a message, and we'll go through those together. And an anonymous, thanks. Please clarify, do you believe grandfathering would apply for applications submitted before the change in law or for visas issued? Okay, to clarify, for visas submitted, applications submitted, sorry, not visas issued. If the application is submitted, then you'll be protected by the current laws. Don't worry about the issuing of the visa. It is the time of the application to honour the current laws. Hope that's clear. Okay, no problem. Very welcome. Very well. So I think I've covered most questions there. I'm going to be finishing up in a moment. So if there's any last questions, please do stick them in there. As a quick recap, I hope you found the webinar helpful. I've tried to cover as much as possible in the time that we have. It's always impossible to cover everything in fine detail, but that is, of course, what we hold private meetings for. So if you'd like to book in for a free consultation, please do. Any information that you need, please ask. Otherwise, yeah, I think that's all for today. We'll be continuing to work with Portugal.com in the future. And again, Portugal.com is a great resource for keeping ahead of current affairs as far as the Golden Visa. So yeah, maybe sign up to some alerts on Portugal.com. Myself, I'll let you know of any new developments. We'll keep everybody on my update list moving forward. And I shall look forward to speaking with everybody soon. Hope that was okay. Nice to meet everybody, and thank you for your time. All the best.